All right, we'll go ahead and get started just due to time. So thank you for joining us today. This is our first Lunch and Learn of 2024. We're going to be having Jeanne Carey speak with us in just a few minutes, and she is from UT Southwestern. So for those of you who are veterans, you know who we are. And for those of you who are new, you might be wondering who we are. So we are SPOT, which is Simulation Professionals of Texas. We are a professional organization offering education, collaboration, networking for all who work in healthcare simulation. So you'll see SPOT, you'll see the logo thrown around, and just know that we are those folks. We do have a little bit of a structure. So part of that structure is we have two parts of it. So we have the advisory board and we have the planning oversight committee. On our advisory board is Jeremiah Averon and Laura Tilkey. And on our planning oversight committee, it's Crystal Campbell, Ruben Torres, Tyler Austin, and myself. I'm Erica Hinojosa. Just to kind of give some quick advisory board updates, we have, I don't know, Crystal, you can jump in at any point in time.
Actually, Jeremiah's on the line.
Perfect. If Jeremiah wants to jump in and give any advisory board updates, that'll be perfect.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm actually outside, so I just, yeah, as far as SPOT getting its 501c3, we're in the process of developing our bylaws, and thanks to Crystal Campbell for all her help, we've really been ironing those out. So as soon as those are complete, we'll be able to apply for a bank account and start to do some more administrative tasks and hopefully get some work with some companies to get sponsorships to further grow our capabilities as a professional organization. So I'm really excited about that. And I was going to put something in the chat. I don't want to take up too much time because I know we have a great topic today. But I did want to mention, if you do want to get involved with SPOT, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Obviously, being a community presenter at an in-person quarterly event, or like virtually, like today as a webinar. Also, if I know that the Oversight Planning Committee is looking for some more people to get involved to plan SPOT events. You do have to fill out an application and go through an interview process to be involved with that. And as we get back into summer conference planning, that it might be something you'd be interested in as well. And then hosting a SPOT quarterly meeting at your facility, which involves providing a tour. So as always, some informal ways to get involved is to share SPOT updates with your local team and colleagues. So that's just something I wanted to share. I know I didn't tell you guys that ahead of time, but that's it for today.
No, and that's a good segue into the next part of this is how do you send us that information? How do we know who you are? How do you want to get involved? As Jeremiah has mentioned, if you want to be a presenter or a host side, so you can keep up with us in a variety of different ways. One of those ways is our SPOT email, so simprosoftexas@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on LinkedIn. We check these pretty regularly. We also share events on all of these locations. And so you can kind of keep up with us and be in the know as much as possible if you follow us on those pages. All right, so getting to the best part of this piece is introducing Jeanne Carey. Jeanne Carey is the Instructional Design Specialist for Simulation at UT Southwestern Medical Center. Prior to joining the center, Jeanne served as the Director of Simulation at Baylor University and has over 12 years of experience in all aspects of simulation, including the development, implementation, and evaluation of new simulation-based learning activities, professional development simulation facilitators, and simulation research and grant writing. She's joining us today to help us understand how we can get the best bang for our buck and how integrating instructional designers into your institution will have a lot of value. So I'm going to pass it over to Jeanne Carey and go from there. So I'm going to stop sharing, correct? And then you'll pick up Jeanne from there.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So thank you very much for that introduction. And thank you all for inviting me to be with you today. I was just saying before we got on that I'm excited to present this information, and I prefer being in person, and I think I tend to do a little bit better when I'm in person, but that's okay. Virtual is the way we go these days, and so I need to hone my skills. As Erica said, I've been in simulation for almost 13 years now, and I've had the pleasure of knowing many of you for quite some time. But just over a year ago, I did make a pretty significant change. Wasn't really necessarily looking to do so, but it seemed to happen for me, and I'm very grateful that it did. It's been a wonderful 12 months learning my new role. And so what is that? I'm the Instructional Design Specialist for Simulation at UT Southwestern. And the Instructional Design Specialist is a little bit different hat than maybe we are used to hearing about in simulation. We're used to the sim tech and the sim facilitator and the sim operator and faculty. And so who the heck is the Instructional Design Specialist, and what the heck is their role? And that's what I'm hoping to kind of give you a little insight into over the next 45 minutes or so. Many of us have been in simulation for a while. You all know simulation. So my challenge over the next our time together here is not to repeat a whole bunch of what you already know, but hopefully to say something maybe that you didn't already know, something that you can take away and apply to your own program and see it as an opportunity to kind of gain a little more bang for your buck. So let's get to it. These are our objectives for our time together, and I'm going to introduce you, if you haven't already been introduced, to Kern's 6-step approach to curriculum design, and walk away with the idea of what an instructional design specialist, or if you aren't able to hire somebody and give them that title at this point, what would it mean for you to take on some of these different roles and duties yourself, or assigned to other members of your team. So if everybody leaves today learning something new, I'll be really happy. If you leave today thinking you would like to implement something new that you learned, I'll be even happier. And if you happen to get back to me at some point and tell me that what you're doing with that, that would be awesome, because I think this is an area that is going to see growth over the next, I don't know, however many years. And so again, whether it's an individual who holds this title and has this role, or it's you just incorporating some of this information into your program, that I think it's going to be a win. And I hope you see that as well. So I said I wasn't going to tell you a whole lot about simulation, but we're going to spend a little bit of time. So I always like to say you're never going to get me into a big discussion or argument over which is better, simulation or learning in clinicals. They're not the same. Simulation is not real. You're never going to hear me say it's as good as the real thing, because it's not. You're not going to also hear me say that it's better than the real thing, because it's not. They're not the same. They'll never be the same. However, they both are aimed at the same goals. And so it's really important that simulation and clinical learn to work together. Not an either or, but an and. So again, can we get the most out of simulation to kind of fill in some of the gaps and some of the deficits of the clinical setting, and vice versa? Again, this is my last slide, I hope, where I'm preaching to the choir and telling you things that you already know. But an expert clinician does not an expert educator make. And so to understand how to educate, to be a part of the learning process and to be effective in it, you need to have some training. You need to have an understanding of certain principles. And so unfortunately, we're really desperate for faculty in all of healthcare education. I know nursing schools are always looking for clinical faculty, medical schools, PA, OT, PT, everybody, we all need faculty. So unfortunately, way too often, really expert, willing, wonderful clinicians get kind of thrown into the educator role without a whole lot of training. We come upon them when they bring their learners to simulation. And I guess I want you, as we're going through the next slides, to kind of think about how incorporating some of these principles not only will benefit your learners by maybe, improving some of the aspects of your simulation activities, but what might it do for your educators to have them engaged in the process of looking at all the different components that go into creating this activity through the lens of learning theories and that kind of thing. So can we take some of these, like I said, awesome, willing, wonderful clinicians and help them develop into those awesome, willing, capable educators? All right. So what is an instructional design specialist? I'll be honest with you, I almost didn't apply for the job that I have. I read the title and I thought, well, I think I know what an instructional design specialist is, and I'm not one, so I guess I won't apply. But it was for simulation. And I'm like, oh, I've been in simulation a long time. So let's read the job description. And everything about the job description certainly seemed like it was aimed directly at me. So then I was like, maybe I don't know what an instructional design specialist is. Maybe it isn't just somebody who creates e-learning, which is what I thought. And so I did a little digging and did a little reading and did go ahead and apply for the position. And here I sit. But an instructional design specialist is a learning expert. All right. And I don't like calling myself an expert in anything. I don't think I am. And I know I have lots to learn. But I have realized and recognized the value that comes from putting myself out there when I'm talking to faculty, when I'm working with other simulationists, to say, I do kind of know something, not just about simulation, but I kind of know simulation from the perspective of how it can be and should be used as a learning strategy. And a lot of that understanding of the whole learning process comes from being in education for the last 13 years. But it also comes from, I did go ahead and get my master's in education, made the intentional decision for that master's to be in education and not in nursing. Nothing against nursing. I love being a nurse, but really wanted to focus on just how do people learn and how do they learn best and how can I best support them in that learning. So whenever you talk about instructional design, you tend to immediately then fall into curriculum design. So we're going to spend a minute here just kind of talking about how they're the same and how they're different. Really, the way I think of it is every little piece of the curriculum that we're delivering is instruction. And all the components that go into curriculum design should be considered when you're doing instructional design and vice versa. So they're kind of all pieces of the same puzzle. Maybe curriculum is the big puzzle and instructional design and the instruction is the pieces, the courses, the clinical experiences, the simulations, all of that creates the education, the curriculum. And 4 key elements of curriculum are the content. What is it we're going to try and teach? The teaching and learning strategies. How are we going to teach it? So are we going to use simulation? Is simulation the right answer here? Assessment processes and then evaluation processes. And we're going to take a little minute here and talk about the difference between assessment and evaluation, because the two get lumped together a lot. I am guilty of kind of using the two terms interchangeably, and yet they really are not the same, and they have distinct meaning. And it's important to kind of know that and let others know that so that we can be, again, applying them appropriately. So assessment is ongoing. I think as simulationists, we probably are assessing everything all the time, constantly. It's just sort of an awareness. It should be pretty objective. Just what am I seeing? All right, what am I seeing here? And, how can I categorize it, organize it to make sense to myself, to my learners, to my stakeholders, versus evaluation, which evaluation, it should be based on very objective data. But let's be honest, at some point, you've got to make a judgment. Whoever the evaluator is, there's a judgmental piece to evaluation. You're going to decide whether the person gets the A or the B, or they, pass or they fail, or whatever. So that's the evaluation process. Assessment, like I said, is ongoing, kind of happening continuously, sort of telling us if we're on the right track, are we headed in the right direction? No judgment to it. It's just the facts. Versus evaluation, which is done kind of one time. Obviously it's repeated, but you're basing it on one observation, one session, and determining this is where this learner is at this time. Now, based on that data, we're on the right track, we're not on the right track, we need to move faster, we need to, rewind, whatever kind of, whatever you're able to take from that data that you have gotten. But that is the difference. And I think it's really important that our learners understand whether they're being assessed or evaluated. I think it's paramount that our educators, our faculty understand whether they're building an activity for assessment purposes only, or will there be an evaluation done based on that assessment. Anyway, I'll get off that soapbox. All right, so there's 3 levels of curriculum. And again, I think this is something that, the first time I read it, which was probably, I don't remember when, it really struck me and it sticks with me. So there's the curriculum that is planned. That's the one we spend a lot of time, we develop. You're going to see this lovely workbook in a little bit, and it looks so pretty and it's perfect, and probably not perfect, but we spend a long time and we've developed this wonderful curriculum. All right, lays out what it is we want our learners to achieve. Then there's the one that's delivered. We don't live in a perfect world. We have limited time. We have limited resources. All of a sudden, a faculty member is sick and we need to double up this group, or all sorts of things happen. And the one that is delivered may vary a little or a lot from the one that was planned. We as educators have control over those 2 a little bit. All right. But the last one is probably the only one that matters. And that's the one that is experienced, the one that the learners take away. So we may have planned the most wonderful, absolutely perfect curriculum in our eyes, and it was delivered. It was a good day and was delivered near perfection. And yet, for whatever reason, and that's the job of maybe the instructional design specialist to figure out, that's not the curriculum that the learners experienced. So things to consider. And how will we know that what they experienced? Through the assessment and evaluation processes. Now, you may be wondering why I have a saber-toothed tiger on this screen. And actually, he was supposed to be appearing right now, but I got a little click happy. So here he is. But the other curriculum that you want to be on the lookout for, and they're out there, is the saber-tooth curriculum. So what the heck does that mean? Well, it's the title, or the name of it, it's prevalent in educational literature, but it is derived from a fable that early cave dwellers would continue to teach their offsprings how to hunt the saber-toothed tiger long after the saber-toothed tiger was extinct. So in other words, it's that curriculum that is obsolete and no longer applicable, and yet we're so tied to it, or we just don't have the time to really revamp it. So here we are, delivering information to learners, spending valuable time and valuable resources on something that's obsolete and they're not going to be able to put into practice. So be on the lookout for the saber-toothed tiger. Instructional design is very much a cyclical and iterative process. It never starts, it never stops. So yes, Dr. Campbell, I work tirelessly as the instructional design specialist for simulation. Really, all this means is that you kind of jump into a session, coming on board. There were lots and lots of sim activities that have been going on for maybe, a couple of years, several years. And still there's a role for an instructional design specialist to come in and sort of say, all right, how is this running? What seems to be working? What's not working? Where could we tweak a few things? Obviously, there's the opportunity for a brand new activity to be, starting from the very beginning and building. But then after you deliver it that one time, you're not finished. You evaluate how it went. Get some suggestions from all the participants and continue to tweak. And that's probably one way to make sure that you're not out there hunting that saber-toothed tiger. There's lots of theories. I used to say when I was in nursing school, which, was so long ago that, it doesn't really matter anymore, but that, I didn't like theories, and I really didn't understand why we needed to learn theories. I'll be now the first to tell you loud and proud that I'm a theory junkie. I love learning new theories. I love that somebody takes the time to sort of figure out and lay a foundation or provide the footings for me to build on. And I don't think I want to become a theorist. Don't think I could, but I love going in and diving into them. And so there's a lot of different theories out there, frameworks out there for curriculum design and development and instructional design. But one of them in particular that I like is Merrill's First Principles of Instruction, because what Dave Merrill did was back in like 2002 was look at a lot of the current theories that were out there and say, what do they all have in common? And can we kind of just tweeze this all out to one set of first principles of instruction? And that's what he did. So according to him, and many others agree, there are these 5 principles of instruction. And I mean, this is whether you're talking about, creating an instructional activity in simulation, or for 5th graders, or, it doesn't matter. This is what they're talking about. And this is what's going to make your offering more successful. So learning's promoted when learners are engaged in real world problems. They need to see relevance. What's in it for me? Why do I need to learn this? Why am I here today? Tell it like it is. Let me know what's going to benefit me. Number 2, learning is promoted when existing knowledge is activated as a foundation. So letting learners know that, hey, you know a lot. You've got a lot going for you. And, what it is that we need to activate or re-engage you with so that you can build on that. Learners like to have things demonstrated to them. This is number 3. That gives them a clear, and it doesn't mean that everything has to have a demo. But it means that they want to see what it is that's expected of them. Now, this seeing what's expected of them can be showing them either a live demonstration, a video, whatever. It can be just explaining it in such a way that they see, that they're able to see, the what's expected of them. But, I think your biggest takeaway from those first 3 is that our learners need to be prepared to learn. All right. If you just throw them into an activity, if our schedule is so tight that they're running from one station to the next station without any time to sort of, wrap their head around, why am I here? Why is this important? What's in it for me? How is it going to use what I already know and build on that? We're not going to engage them. So those first 3 kind of, in my mind, all play toward getting the learner ready to learn. And then the 4th one deals with the whole idea, and this is where sim comes into play, is learners like to be able to apply what it is they're learning. So an experiential activity, not just reading something out of a book. And I love that, this was, determined to be one of the key principles of instruction, is that it's that whole learning by doing. And so I think that gives a whole lot of merit to what we all do every day. And fifth and final is that learning is promoted. Again, that whole getting more bang for your buck, when the new knowledge is able to be integrated into the learner's world. So, that transfer of learning, which in healthcare simulation, this is that golden ring that we're all trying for. I love to tell learners, I'm not here today and doing what I do to make you the best simulated doctor or nurse, or the best doctor or nurse of taking care of simulated patients. No, I mean, I'm here that you can go out there and do really, really good work with real patients. So that's going to require that they take what they learn in sim and be able to transfer it or extend it beyond simulation and into, their day-to-day life. So keep these principles in mind as you are working through the design and development of simulation, or the revamping of existing simulation activities. So Kern's 6-step approach to curriculum design. It's one of the ones that, Merrill looked at when he was looking at all of them, but Kern's comes up a lot in medical simulation, medical education. It's the approach to curriculum design that we use here at UT Southwestern. And so it's the one I'm sharing with you today. And it's a 6-step process, but you're going to notice that the arrows go in all different directions. Because again, it's cyclical, it's iterative, it's ongoing. Jump in at any point, move back and forth, make a change to one section and realize that then you need to go make a change to another section. Again, kind of never ending. Although this is probably a good place to bring up the whole point that, perfection is definitely the enemy of progress. You don't have to make things perfect before you implement them, because they'll never be perfect. Going back to that whole what's planned versus what's delivered versus what's experienced. I'm a really, really big believer in, you do the work ahead of time, you do your best to be prepared and put forth your best effort, but you gotta do it. You gotta put it into practice and see what happens. And then learn from that experience in order to come back and revamp this activity, or even just apply some of what you learned to the next activity. So we're not going to go step by step right now, because I'm about to share with you a curriculum workbook that is going to take it step by step. So it's a 6-step approach to curriculum design. And it actually just came out with the 4th edition of the book. And it really, really, I can't stress enough, if you haven't spent a lot of time in educational theory and learning theory, I encourage you to do so. And I think that, Kern's 6-step approach to curriculum design breaks it down into pretty simple steps that allow you to kind of digest as you're able, and really even to recognize where you think, you need to spend the time more than others. So we do have a curriculum design workbook that we developed here at UT Southwestern, and we are going to share it with all of you. We did somehow manage to take a 6-step approach and turn it into 12 pages. So good and bad there. One, don't be overwhelmed. But I think what I like about it is it really does let others know that quite a bit goes into planning a quality simulation activity. It's not something we can just throw together because your students can't go to clinical tomorrow and you want them to come to the sim center instead. Now, I certainly did a lot of that when I was at my previous institution, and there's nothing wrong with trying to, I'd rather have the learners come to simulation than sit at home. what that means though is you have activities in your back pocket, ready to pull out when you have kind of last minute opportunities to bring learners to simulation. So I'm not telling you you can't do last minute help outs, whatever, but to think that you're going to do an activity that just kind of gets thrown together, that maybe not so much. It could really, it could just be unsuccessful, and that's a shame. You've wasted time, you've wasted resources. But the bigger threat and the bigger worry is that you could actually do some damage. Damage to the learners, and by damage, I mean just harm, or, where they now have a negative impression of simulation because, again, the activity was not well planned. So 12 pages, right here gives you a snapshot view. And like I said, we're going to throw into the chat a copy of this workbook for you. It's not, there's not one size fits all of anything in simulation. So why would this be any different? Some of it may or may not be applicable to your institution or your simulation program. But it gives you an idea of what it is that you need and could and should maybe be looking at. The first steps are outlined here as, problem identification and needs assessment. The one point I want to make about, step 1 and 2 is the idea that, we'll have faculty come to us with an idea of what, why they want to come to sim and what it is they want to do. I usually like to back them up just a little bit and try and find out why and how did they come to the decision that this is what they need to teach their learners, and make sure that it's based on good logic. And so, and then to also make sure that whatever it is that we're going to be delivering, is current, is based on, the current data and literature that's out there. So there should be, some type of literature review going on. Nothing super, super extensive, depending on the activity, whatever. I'm not, this is not meant to be so cumbersome that you never ever manage to finally get an activity pulled together. It really is just supposed to help focus your attention and focus your time on the things that really will make a difference. So we all know you need to have good, an overall goal or an expected outcome. And then, of course, the importance of objectives. And we could do an entire workshop on writing objectives and SMART objectives. But what I like about the workbook and the way we put it together is that, it's giving that information to others who maybe this information is a little newer to them, or they don't have it memorized. And so it's letting them know what they should consider when they're looking at objectives for their activity. So that actually takes us to, all the way through page 5 of this 12-page book. So then we get into the whole design and implementation of the educational strategy. So if the determination was made that yes, sim is the right platform to be using, then we're going to design that simulation activity. And what is that going to look like? And so this is that page. And it really is just, kind of first, it will help determine or help you make an argument for those activities that really maybe aren't that appropriate for simulation. But more often than not, it's going to be used to just help guide, what goes into, and you're going to have your own, this doesn't take the place. We still have a, scenario template or an SP case template. So, it's not taking the place of that. This all kind of comes before the actual identification and development of a case. Well, it can come before. They also can come to us with the case and say, this is what I want to run because this just happened in clinical and it didn't go well. And that's okay too. But, this is just really saying what goes into the whole idea of putting an activity together, start to finish. So this sort of coincides with the simulation design standard of best practice, if you want to think of it that way. And then we move into, the pre-briefing, and it has its own page, and it's saying, part of the activity, it's not just about what they're going to be actively doing, but that whole importance of preparing the learner for the experience, getting them ready to learn. So I like that this page just lets the educator know there's certain things that are just need to happen before we throw a learner into a simulation activity. And we happen to call it pre-briefing, and these are the different components, and maybe not every component applies to every, but this is where you need to, spend some time thinking about what you're going to do for your learners. We also want to make sure they know that the simulation doesn't end when the activity ends or the scenario ends. Time is always of the essence. It is our most valuable commodity, ours, our learners. Nobody has enough time. So we want to, we recognize that. But I think a really, really, really big challenge for you might be that whole idea that, if we don't add the time for the pre-briefing and the debriefing, then the time that we spent in the simulation might just be wasted time. And so why would we waste this commodity that is so valuable? So do we need to shorten the scenario in order to allow for the pre-brief and debrief? Do we need to, cut down the number of stations we're going to put the learner through, because there is such a thing as cognitive overload that we need to consider as well. So, do we need to do one fewer activity, one fewer scenario in order that what we do deliver is received well, is experienced well, and real learning actually takes place. So then the evaluation and assessment component. All right. Assessment should happen no matter what. So you might have somebody say, oh, no, this is just a formative activity. We're not going to be, it's not for a grade. Great. Awesome. Love using simulation for that. But we still need to be assessing the learners, or else we're just wasting everyone's time. So we need to be able to, give them some feedback on where it is that they currently are and how they're progressing down that road, and where they're, if they're on target to meet the get to the finish line when they should. If they're not, why we think or how we can support them in getting there. So this really is the page or the stage or the step to spend time with the faculty and say, what is it you hope to learn about your learners through this simulation activity? What is it we want to be evaluating? What is it we want to be assessing? Will it be summative? Will it be formative? Is it a high stakes? I mean, obviously we've heard those terms before, but again, even if they try and say real quickly that, oh, no, we're not doing any kind of evaluation, it's not for a grade, that we need to be doing assessment. And we also need to be assessing the activity itself, and how well it how close did the delivered curriculum come to the planned curriculum. So that's what this step in this page is all about. This page, again, may or may not apply to every activity, but it's all about the remediation plan. If you have a learner or learners or the whole group who does not quite perform at the level that you had anticipated or the level that you think they should be at, what are we going to do about that? How much of that is on them? How much of that is on us? And what are we able to do to remedy that situation? So that's the remediation plan. It's your remedy. It's your remedy for what ails you. So if things didn't go the way that they could have or should have for all of the learners, do we have the ability, and this takes time again, and it takes resources. Remediation doesn't always have to be coming back to do the same activity again, because sim schedules and resources might not allow that. And it might not even be necessary, but it's that realization that, if we identify a learner as being behind or not quite where they should be, it's on us to then, try and step in and correct that and make it better. So that's what the remediation plan page is all about. This is another one for all of us to kind of keep in mind, and really from the very beginning. Is there an opportunity for this to turn into some type of scholarship? Could this be some type of research study? If it is, do we need to know that from the very, very beginning so we can involve, the necessary people and get the right permissions? Could this turn into some type of manuscript, an article? Could it be a presentation to others so that something that, we're doing that's working well for us can be shared with others so that they can benefit as well? But again, considering it from the very beginning. And I think if you have a lot of novice educators, they're going to think they're not ready for this, and they're going to think that this is just a page that can be ignored. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that, don't let them do that to themselves. Challenge yourselves to think, again, there's all sorts of ways to disseminate the information. And I guess that's what I would like to think about this. Yeah, I mean, if it could end up being an article, a published article for you, awesome. But it doesn't have to reach that level. Sharing it with just, others in multiple ways can benefit a lot of other learners. And you've put a lot of time and energy into developing an activity. Why not share it? So that's sort of what that page is addressing. And then the last page is the whole idea that this is all a non-stop, iterative, cyclical process. So when you get to the last page, guess what? You get to just flip the book over and start all over again. No, but and just build or reassess after you run the activity once, or you've been running this activity the same way for the last 5 years. Maybe it's time to refresh. That's what the curriculum maintenance is all about. And how can we make this better? Maybe it doesn't need to be made better. Maybe it's great the way it is, but we should take time then to acknowledge that. And is it still, again, back to step one, where we should be aware of the current literature and the current approach versus the ideal approach to the teaching this content. So it's a 12-page book that, again, we're happy to share with you guys, and happy to answer questions about as you have the opportunity to spend more time with it. But what we're going to do now to kind of just see if you learned anything yet from this presentation is I stopped sharing so I could share again. I have to go find my Jeopardy game here. We're going to play Jeopardy. We're going to see what we learned. Let's see here. I knew this was going to take me a second here because I practiced it so many times where it went perfect that we're going to have to figure it out.
And just as Jeannie's pulling that up, I did drop our workbook in the chat. If you have any issues opening that link, please let me know. I'm happy to reshare it. And then I'm also going to share after Jeopardy, Jeannie's been kind enough to PDF all of her slides as well. So I'll share that in the chat shortly.
All right. So can you see the Jeopardy board right now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I was worried there for a minute. So I think you guys know how Jeopardy works. I wish we were in person because I do have fun little buzzers that I have that we could have been doing teams. I think Debbie Hogg, if she's on, she's got one of my buzzers. And anyway, I used this with the MedEd elective course. We did a little activity with them and we played Jeopardy at the end of it. I think Jeopardy, this could be a really fun format for you to consider for your pre-brief. I could even maybe be used for a debrief, especially if you have a really large group and you're like, this is a larger group than I would really like to have in a debrief. How am I going to make sure people are engaged? Again, but you have the link on in your slides for this Jeopardy Labs website that's free and really easy and fun to use, and you can create your own Jeopardy games. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. And Erica, I think I'll let you pick the first category and topic level or letter. But wait a minute, so I'm having a little issue seeing my large screen, so I may have to rely on one of you guys to make sure that you let me know who raised their hand, or actually, guys, you can even call out, because if I had a lot of, if I had a wonderful prize for the winner, then we'd have to be really careful about who really wins, but I don't. So I'm sorry. And now I'm trying to get my lighting to light up in here, and it won't. It decided it's almost time for me to be quiet. Anyway, that's okay. Let's go on. And Erica, you can go ahead and choose a category and an amount.
Okay, I'm gonna go with instructional design and curriculum for 100.
All right. I will read the answer, and then please form your response in the form of a question. All right. There will be points deducted if you don't do that. No, I'm kidding, because again, I don't have any prizes. So, planned experiences provided via instruction through which the school or institution meets their educational goals. Anyone?
Erica?
I was gonna see if somebody is gonna jump in, and I'll
Are
give
they
it a
all
second.
unmuted? Are
They can unmute themselves.
Okay.
This is a great
Definitely
time
unmute
if you
yourself.
are joining to jump in if you know the answer. Jeremiah. Let's see.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking out loud. Experience. Objective? No.
Some of these are pretty
Sorry.
darn general.
So I agree with Jeremiah, because to be fair, I did cheat and meet with Jeannie yesterday. And so I knew this answer and I wasn't going to be thrown off in front of everybody, but I thought objectives too, but it is what is curriculum?
It's the planned experiences, the whole, what is your curriculum? So again, it's a large one, but I mean, it's you can all fault me for my ability to form Jeopardy questions, but it can be a fun way to just get people talking. And what I found during the med ed elective was sometimes the ones I kind of messed up the most, got the most discussion going. So there could be a method to our madness here. But Jeremiah, go ahead and pick a category and an amount.
All right, let's go with the same column, 200, please.
All right.
I love Jeopardy, by the way.
A process for creating effective and efficient learning activities. Anyone can jump in.
Okay. Yes, please.
What is creating SMART objectives?
I like that too. And I mean, I'll accept answers that are good, that I like apply. So, whoops.
But what is the answer?
I know. What is instructional design? Okay, you see how we're building here? So what is curriculum? And then instructional design is really a process for creating effective and efficient learning activities. So what is it I do? That's what I do. And what is it you're going to do when you apply instructional design principles when in the development of your activities? You're working to create effective and efficient learning activities. And who could fault that?
Right.
So anyway.
Nice.
All right.
I think Kay had responded if Kay wants to pick the next category.
All right, go for it.
Let's try grab bag for 200.
I like
All
the
right.
randomness. Yeah, the graph.
Yes.
Okay.
This learning theory states learners make their own meaning based on past and present experiences. So who knows learning theories?
Is that the adult, how adults learn?
You're
No.
close. I mean, this is getting into the weeds.
KOLB.
Okay, it's not experiential learning.
Well, experiential learning would be a form of this, but this is the actual theory is constructivism. So they like to take what they already know and build on it. All right. And so again, I'm a theory junkie, and the game today, it wasn't designed to be based on my presentation, which probably would have been more applicable, because you guys don't want to hear everything I just said all over again. So you have the link to this game. So if you click on that link, you'll be able to go to this game, and you guys will be able to go in and look at all the answers and see all the. So it's meant to just provide additional information. So maybe I should have said that from the get-go. That would have been a better part of my pre-briefing before we just jumped right into this activity. Is that, yeah, there are going to be questions on here that might be a bit challenging for you, because my hope or intention was to use this as an opportunity to just give you a few more nuggets that you might use in your development. So whoever answered that one, or Erica, you can pick somebody to just pick a category. We'll do a couple more, and then if people have questions, we can jump out of Jeopardy and just have more of a conversation.
Perfect. I'm going to pass it over to Tyler to pick the next category and amount.
I think I'll go with current 6-step approach for 100, please.
All right. A popular curricular development approach commonly used within medical education. This one's super obvious, like it's the title of the category. So what is current 6-step approach? All right. So again, the idea that you can go out there and learn more about that, but let's hit a 500 so that you guys can see sort of if I did build or whatever, that one then builds all the way up to. This step has several components and involves assessing both the learners and the curriculum. So which step of current 6-step is this?
She just went over that.
Would that be the evaluation and feedback?
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. Step 6, evaluation and feedback. All right. So you're looking at both the learners and then the activity, and then the activity within the larger curriculum. Because we didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about that either, but you might have the most fabulous activity and it has great objectives and you meet all those objectives, but if it doesn't really apply to the curriculum, like if it's not something they need to know, then again, where's the value in that? So the idea to be able to look at your activity and see where it falls in the curriculum and how it helps support the curriculum is also an important part of the evaluation and stage. So
5-minute warning. So maybe one more question and then we can move to question and answer.
all right, then you can pick the last one, Dr. Campbell.
Oh man, let's go instructional design and healthcare simulation for 300.
All right, right in the middle.
Yes.
The healthcare simulation standard that addresses the need for a purposeful and intentional approach to simulation development. How well do we know our HSSOBPs?
There's 10.
What is simulation design?
Ding, 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 ding.
Ooh,
So a lot of what we've been talking about today is, and this is actually a great question to end on, because a lot of it is addressed in the simulation design standard. That is the whole standard saying we need to be intentional and purposeful in what we're doing. And when we're talking about developing a new sim activity. So every time, a lot of what I said might sound like it was new to you, or maybe not, but a lot of it can be found in the standards. What I think I was hoping to do was expose you to maybe some resources outside of simulation, outside of healthcare, more aimed at the actual educational process and the literature, and as far as learning and strategies, and see then if some of that information might be helpful or shed a new light. So, but I thank you for your attention and your time. And yeah, I can answer questions. I'm also available via email once you get a chance to look through the curriculum workbook a little more closely. if that sparks more questions, but.
Outstanding. And just a quick update, all those links, including Jeannie's slides, are again in the chat. So we'll move into question and answer. And we do have one in the chat. Tyler, do you want me to go ahead and scroll up? So Jeannie, the question, okay, so the question came through, Jeannie, from Jeremiah about how faculty interact with you. And I'm assuming just like the process and what does that look like as an instructional design specialist?
All right, good question, because we spent a little time figuring that out, and we still are. I should have maybe told you that my role was a new role. And as that was partly trying to figure out exactly what you're saying. How do I interact with the faculty? How do I interact with the current staff? We have fabulous sim team here with wonderful sim educators, sim operators, SP trainers, SP educators, a lot of people who know a lot about simulation. So how do I interact with them? How do I interact with faculty? And it really is, at that foundational, level. I'm not as involved in the day-to-day delivery of simulation, although, I like to get in there and see how everything plays out after we've spent the time developing it. We played with the idea that anytime anyone was requesting a brand new activity, because when they submit an activity, they let us know whether it's new or previously held. But then we found, and I was going to just meet with everybody who was doing who was requesting a new activity and just see, was this really appropriate for sim, et cetera. And then there was way too many people coming through with new activities. So then it became more that I try and join a lot of the intake meetings. I really rely on the team to kind of tell me, hey, this faculty seems to kind of know what they want to do, but they've got a lot of questions. Could you spend some time with them? I'm hoping, and it has started happening, that as I, who I am and what I do kind of becomes a little more known, that people will just kind of reach out to me directly with, hey, I have this idea, or hey, I have this question, and, I think maybe you can help me with it. But yeah, that process has not been perfected, and it maybe never will. But I really do feel like, any opportunity I have to talk and work with faculty, I try and seize the opportunity. So.
Fabulous. I know we're right at time. Are there any other questions from those on the call that just want to unmute and ask? I had one question if we have time for it, Jeannie. I was really curious from the Merrill's instructional design. I love that overarching view of all the different paradigms. How do you see emerging technology influencing any of those paradigms, like AR, VR?
Yeah, and AR, VR, we were saying, I didn't go to IMSH, but I heard that, lots of the vendors were involved in, AR and VR, and I think it's just going to explode with AI. And so I think we need, I guess my concern with how VR is going to just explode is that, we go back to these principles. Just because something's fun or cool, we don't get sucked in. If it can't meet, if it doesn't adhere to these principles, then we have to question whether or not it truly is a valuable, efficient, effective way to be delivering the content. And then maybe first and foremost, is the content even appropriate? And again, just because somebody develops something really cool and flashy and fun, we got to make sure that it's still applicable to our learners and our curriculum. So I would say the principles are going to apply even more, and the onus is going to be maybe on us to, as we're asked to kind of vet some of these products, to ourselves not get sucked in by all the bells and whistles.
Great insights. Thank you so much. So I'll turn over to Erica for the final.
Yeah, I know that it is over 12 now, and if you are able to stay, you're more than welcome to, and I don't want to take too much of everybody's time. One of the parts that I was really curious about, and there's a bit of a backstory for this, but it comes down to the IRB approval for the workbook. I think it's a wonderful workbook. We're currently working with our pre-med department here at the University of Texas at Arlington, who don't have any SIM curriculum, who don't have any SIM experience built into their program. It's predominantly social work in nursing, Masters of Athletic Training, public health here at our institution that have that already integrated and for the most part, pretty well established. So for the pre-med and especially the advisors that we're working with, we're trying to find resources here on campus. So the library has a form called the Maker Literacy or Maker's Competency, which they have that approved by the IRB. So going through them is fine and we can use that. But now that I've watched this presentation, it would be much more relatable to use this particular workbook to have the same kind of outcomes and get a little bit more specific with what we're doing in simulation versus the Maker competencies that are much more generalized outcomes for the learners. And I went to the website. So is this form officially IRB approval, or can we just include it to be an IRB form that needs to be approved at a later time? How is that structured?
Right. So I'm not sure I'm exactly following the reference to IRB in the workbook has to deal with the scholarship opportunities.
Okay.
And so the idea that if you were going to, use this as, some type of research project, to kind of think about that from the get-go, so you can go ahead and apply for the IRB. A lot of these studies in simulation end up being exempt, but that was more just the idea of know about IRB. But I would say, I think if you're asking, like, we haven't published this workbook, it's in a lot of putting it together in the way that we put it together is unique to us, but the information, it's based on Kern's 6 step. So if you're kind of like, does the workbook itself need approval? I would probably defer to just your curriculum design people to find out whether, how they feel about it. If they're like, if you just, because some people, we could have called it a worksheet, there's worksheets out there, and, some people have like a little 1-page type worksheet that they use that, wants to hit on the objectives and things like that. But, I guess it would be interesting, and I would love to have you follow up with us when you do take this to other people in your program and find out, kind of what hoops they want you to jump through.
Okay. Yeah, and that was just the initial question. The project that we're working on won't be until mid-ish May. And so right now we're just trying to get everything formalized and then start the IIB process and then get that submitted and approved within the next couple of months. And there's a lot of hoops to jump through even with the IRB. So you really have to have your ducks squared away before you can even submit it. And so I definitely will keep you in the loop and most likely reach out to you even prior to that, just to ask a little bit more questions outside of this and pitch the idea to the committee that's working on this project. Because I do think it'll help organize us. Like, we do a lot of these things that currently what we do in sim, but for somebody who doesn't have that same kind of experience, this is a really good outline for that.
Good. When you're talking about your pre-health, your pre-learners, pre-med, pre-nursing, a place where VR is going to explode in that arena is anatomy. There are so many, we're going to have to stop having them all sit there and read books, and eventually maybe even, some med schools have stopped having them, do any kind of dissection or whatever. And it is all in this virtual reality where you're like inside the body then, and you're actually turning the heart and looking at it from all different angles. And so, there's going to be lots of opportunity for you to look into that.
All right. Well, if nobody else has any other questions, then we'll go ahead and end the session. And Jeannie, we absolutely appreciate you being here with us today and sharing all of your knowledge. And I absolutely look forward, and hopefully others on this session today that get to use that and implement it, or at least start to reach out and start that initial conversation with you. And so thank you so much for joining us. And I really appreciate you being here today.
I was like, now the lights went out completely on me.
I think the room is trying to tell us something.
Time to go. But thank you all very much.
Nice job. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon. All right.